But first, the 2025 College Football Hall of Fame ballot came out on Monday. And once again, it is loaded. Every time I look at one of these ballots, I am reminded that we too deep in this sport. And you know what? For good reason. Because to be considered for induction into the College Football Hall of Fame as a player, you have to have won first team All-American by a recognized institution, right? I wrote about this at some length with Chuck Ely because that is a man that deserved to be in the College Football Hall of Fame and was not because of, well, stupidity. But we got that corrected. My man is in now, and for good reason. Chuck Ely is one of the winningest quarterbacks by percentage that we've ever seen at Toledo. And then last year, kind of found out that Mike Leach would not have been eligible because you have to win at least 60% of your games to be eligible as a coach for the Hall of Fame. And he's not eligible this year like some others, say Nick Saban, who retired in January, and Urban Meyer, who retired some years ago, because he was not 70 at the time of his death. So there is a stipulation in the College Football Hall of Fame voting process where you can be considered for induction into the Hall of Fame as a coach if you're 70 and retire or 75 and still coaching, right? Because the point is, we want you to get your flowers. Like Mac Brown is in the College Football Hall of Fame and still coaching, okay? That's how old Mac Brown is, how long Mac Brown has been around. But I want to start with talking about Coach Meyer and talking about Coach Saban. Talk about Coach Meyer, we'll get to Coach Saban, then we'll talk a little bit about some of the players that are on the ballot. But the thing that I want folks to know about Urban Meyer, if you know nothing else, is that he was about winning. And I don't mean a little winning. I mean the college football definition of winning. He has the third highest winning percentage among Power 5 coaches ever. 85.4%. Like going back to Bowling Green, to Utah, to Florida, to Ohio State. The man was about winning. And his teams won national championships. I mean, there's a lot to go into Coach Meyer. There's a lot that we can unpack about Coach Meyer, but he is synonymous with some of the most important players to ever play in the sport, right? And some guys that really reflect well in the NFL. Like I got a hard time telling people this, but like you had to be around to know that Eric Weddle was a bigger deal to many of us than Alex Smith. And Alex Smith was the #1 overall draft pick, right? Alex Smith, quarterback at Utah. Eric Weddle was the original Wildcat at Utah and came out of retirement to help the Los Angeles Rams win a Super Bowl, which is remarkable the more I think about it. And then think about what he did at Florida. You know, everybody going to talk about Tim Tebow. You talk about Tim Tebow, that's fine. He had Tim Tebow and Cam Newton on the same roster, still chose to go with Tim Tebow. Couldn't have been me, but you know what? It worked out for them. Won a national championship. Also, I'm here for justice for Chris Leak because I don't really know that y'all understand that Chris Leak was the dude. Should have been the dude. Was the dude that got them on the good foot. But you know what? That's 3 quarterbacks that are outstanding. I can keep going. Percy Harvin, my God, at Florida, right? And we can keep going on what those Florida teams did and what they got in trouble for. But let's just jump to Ohio State, right? Winning in 2014, that national championship. I still want to do a documentary myself on the 2012 Ohio State football team because it is the best team to not win a national championship. Remember, they couldn't go play in a bowl game because they had a postseason bowl ban, but didn't stop them from going 12-0. And that was a harbinger of things to come and really set up Ohio State for the run that they are kind of on and kind of trying to live up to. And I'm going to explain more about that in the next segment. But Coach Meyer is a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame and well should be. July 10th, he's going to turn 60 years old. Happy early birthday to Big Noon Kickoffs, Coach Urban Meyer. Next on the list is, the greatest college football coach of all time. It's Nick Saban. The day that man retired was the day that he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, as far as I'm concerned, right? Now, that happened a little bit earlier this year, and there was a lot of pomp and circumstance around it, and as predictable as it might be, it still kind of caught us off guard, because if you are me, you were raised around Nick Saban. And I mean that sincerely. I don't just mean the SEC version of Nick Saban. Nick Saban was a known commodity in the Big Ten for years, right? Got his first head coaching job at Toledo and then went to Michigan State and turned that into LSU. But before that, we're talking about a guy who really personifies the coaching life experience. He got started at this almost immediately out of college at Kent State and continued to keep doing the job for the better part of 50 years. And it really didn't come into fruition for Nick Saban to be great until he was about 20 years into the journey, which means that he was just going to do this, right? He was going to be a football coach, and whatever that meant, wanted it to move up. So he goes from Michigan State to LSU, and that's when we really get to see the salaries get out of control. I'm also going to point to Nick Saban for that. Anytime you want to get mad about money, I'm going to point you to they overpaid at LSU to get Nick Saban from Michigan State. Now, it turned out to be okay because they won a national championship, one of 7 national championships that Nick Saban won. But that's how the percentages and the salaries get out of focus for that. And now we got the name, image, and likeness. But before all of that, I also need to remind you that Alabama wasn't nobody when I was a child. I knew about Nick Saban. He was cool. He was good. At LSU, I learned to fear him because that LSU team beat the hell out of my Oklahoma team, and I got to know what Nick Saban was about. And Nick Saban did me a solid, went to Miami, right, to coach the Dolphins, where I thought, cool, you're going to be one of those dudes that decided to go coach in the pros when you really are a college football coach at heart, and the things that make you great as a college football coach work against you in the NFL. Also, really brought into focus what a first-round draft pick should mean. And this is a man that put more first-round draft picks into the NFL than any other college football coach ever. 49. 16 straight, including this year. I don't know that we're going to see another head coach put 16 straight NFL draft picks in the first round, right? And then add into that, he looked at Miami and said, wait a second, I only get 1 first-round draft pick, and that's if my GM hasn't traded it away. Let me get out of here. And more to the point, I think we got Miss Terry to really applaud for this move because Miss Terry is one half of the Nick Saban machine, okay? From the recruiting to the keeping the house to the keeping the office to understanding what makes that man tick and what makes Alabama and or LSU tick and what didn't work at Miami. She just did not have the foothold at Miami that she deserved. And Mal Moore, the athletic director at Alabama, was very smart at his introductory press conference for Nick Saban to say, Miss Terry, would you stand? Recognize the coach's wife saying she is the reason we get Nick Saban here in Tuscaloosa. And from then on, I was like, oh, damn, Alabama might be onto something. And they sure as hell was. Alabama goes from not being nobody that I cared about. I don't know nothing about scared of Alabama. Bear Bryant was gone and passed. They'd be firing good coaches like Gene Stallings. I ain't got to worry about them. They hiring a head coach who get caught at strip club. Don't coach no games. Why would I care about no Alabama? Then 08 happened. Then 09, they won a national championship. And then, damn, we all chasing them because Nick Saban reset the table for what excellence is in college football. I don't think that I'm going to see another run by a head coach like the run that I saw from Nick Saban. And I really am impressed by it. He's one of my favorite people to talk about because many of the lessons that I learned about the sport, how to cover it, how to talk to people, what is important to football coaches, what is important to football players, what is important to recruits, to parents. I learned from hearing him talk. I learned from the players and coaches that he touched. His coaching tree is ridiculous. Take a look at that 2015 coaching staff. It has like 9 head coaches on it, and a couple of those guys are GAs, including guys like Dan Lanning at Oregon, right? Kirby Smart felt like a dude that was never going to leave Alabama, and then went to the one place that Nick Saban was always terrified getting back on the good foot the way that Alabama got back on the good foot, and that's Georgia, right? So he's in the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame as well. He should be. Alabama, that's his state, and now going to be inducted into our Hall of Fame, and that's the way it should be. Really, I'm overjoyed for Coach Saban being able to be recognized while we can still give him his flowers, and he's going to have a great time talking about college football on television while keeping his finger on the pulse of everything at Alabama. Really, the only thing to say about the College Football Hall of Fame players on the ballot, or I should say potential inductees, the candidates, is we get to add guys like Michael Strahan to the list, who was doing the damn thing at Texas Southern. We add guys like Mark Ingram to the list, who played for Coach Saban and won a Heisman Trophy. And we get to add back to the list some guys that are going to probably be there for a while. So one of the quirks of the College Football Hall of Fame ballot is you're only eligible for the 30 years after you stop playing. 30 years feels like a long time, but this is where I get to tell you, guys that are still on that list include Mike Vick. I really wish I didn't have to say more, but that's Mike Vick. So I don't know what the voters are doing, but Mike Vick needed to be in the College Football Hall of Fame yesterday. Peter Warrick is on the ballot. Alan Faneca is on the ballot. Rocky Kalmus is on the ballot. Like, we got dudes. Martin Harrison Sr. is on the ballot. what are we doing with this, right? Like, I know people want it to be the College Football Hall of Fame and not the College Football Hall of Very Good, but damn it, man, we got some hitters that need to be enshrined, so get on it right now. You know, we even got room for guys like Aaron Donald to make it into the College Football Hall of Fame. And I don't mean to throw no extra shade at Aaron Donald. All to say that anytime I say Pitt, everybody want to correct me to saying Pittsburgh, as in the Steelers. I'm like, nah, I'm talking about Pitt. You know, the thing about college football, and one of the reasons I think that it's very cool, is a guy like Aaron Donald, who will probably go down in NFL history as one of the best, if not the best defensive tackle to ever play at that level, is he might be the fourth best player to come out of Pitt if you're taking into account his college pedigree. I mean, I can put Tony Dorsett up there, right? I can put Larry Fitzgerald up there. I can put Darrelle Revis up there. And then I got to have a fight about Aaron Donald and Mike Ditka, right? I got to keep going on this. And you know what? At some point or another, I got to do something about that, because it's Pitt is one of those schools, like every great college football program that I love. You just got to point it out to people. You got to let them understand that we've been doing this. Like, I got a hard time putting Dan Marino ahead of Mike Ditka, Aaron Donald, or Darrelle Revis because, well, frankly, I know y'all all know that Dan Marino was great in the NFL, but I can't get over 1981, 1982, Jim McMahon got more votes for the Heisman than Dan Marino. And Jim McMahon ain't one of the 5 best players to come out of Brigham Young. You get what I'm saying here? All love the 85 Bears, but it's the 85 Bear defense. Jim McMahon was just the dude running the offense. But that's my tangent on that. All to say, we got some dudes, and I'm really grateful to see that we continue to put out outstanding men that are eligible for the College Football Hall of Fame.
If you like what you've seen, consider subscribing to the #1 college football show on YouTube, the Fox Sports app, or wherever you get your podcast.